Hi everyone. This is the weekly announcement for week 3, and week 3 is partially over. The due date for the activities, the assignments, and the assessments for week 3 are the due date is December the 20th. So I wanted to show you week 3 on Moodle. You notice that you have 2 chapters again. Chapter 20 is the lymphatic system, and 21 is the immune system. They are very much related, correlated with each other. They work together. Sometimes in some anatomy and physiology courses, which aren't as detailed as this one, they will just teach the lymphatic system or the immune system as one. So anyway, if you notice here, your assignments that are graded are that you have an interactive physiology called the lymphatic system. The lab report to the interactive physiology is in Moodle, but you have to go to Mastering A&P to find the interactive physiology. It's in your study area. There are instructions down below here. Your other assignment, as always, is you have a Chapter 20 quiz. What you need to be doing to prepare for your exam that's coming up is these quizzes that you get each week. You have 5 attempts on these quizzes, and the exam is going to come from the information on the quizzes. Now, what I do with most of the questions on the quizzes is that I reword them so it's not as easy for students to look the answers up, because obviously we all know by now that these questions are in Quizlet and other apps that you could go to. If I make it up, if I word the question my way, it's harder to look the answers up. It takes a little longer. And so as long as you have studied and you know the answer, you should have plenty of time to take the exam. But if you're having to look the answers up each time, that's not the way that I designed the exam to be for students to have to look the answers up. I want you to know the answers by studying your quizzes. So anyway, moving on to Chapter 21, you have another interactive physiology called lymphatic system, and then you have a quiz. All right. Then below that, you have your interactive physiology assignment is here. 2 have been submitted, 2 have been ungraded. I will get to them. But the lab report itself that you're going to post your answers on is right here. So you would click on it, you would fill it in, and then you would upload it to this assignment. And you're going to do that for Chapter 20 and Chapter 21. For the immune system, there are actually 3 lab reports. And for the lymphatic system, there's just 1. Okay, the next week, which is week number 4, your midterm exam is in this week. It's due, I want to make sure I tell you this correctly, it's due the December the 22nd, but I will post it Monday at, well, it would actually be Tuesday at midnight, but I will post it, I'm sorry, no, I'm posting it Monday at midnight. So Monday at midnight all the way to Wednesday at 11:59. So I will do your video review. I've sent you guys some invitations, and I will do the video review with you on Sunday afternoon. I try not to make those reviews on Sundays, but sometimes it just works out that way. I wanted to get it done before before this exam opens, which is Monday. It will open up on Monday. Okay, so Let us now review last week. I've gone through your chapter 18 and 19 quizzes. Chapter 18 was on the heart, chapter 19 was on the blood vessels, and I've gone through those quizzes, and I have seen where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. So I'm going to click on the chapter 18 slides. I prefer the PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through I'm just going to skip around, but I'm going to go through the information. Here we go. That I noticed that you guys were having trouble with. So let's just hit slideshow from current slide. Okay, this is part A of chapter 18, the cardiovascular system. There's a video that you can watch, but I'm going to go on to heart anatomy and just find a good image. Okay, here we go. This is a good image. This is like a cross section through the heart. I wonder if there's another image there. Okay, this is before the cross section. So this is what a heart would look like if you just took it out of somebody's chest and held it in your hands. This is what it would look like facing you. So really, this side, where it's the side that has brachiocephalic trunk, superior vena cava, this side of your vena cava, superior and inferior, are actually on the right side of the heart, even though it's the left side of the page, because you're looking at the heart as if you were looking down on directly on towards somebody's chest. So you would be looking, your left would be their right, and then vice versa. The left structures are on the right side of the page. So what we've got here are, we have two little flaps that look kind of like elephant ears. And these are the flaps that receive blood. They're called the right and the left atrium. You can see the right atrium better from this view. So this is the right atrium. I'll try to circle it with my pointer. And then this is the left atrium. It says it's the auricle of the left atrium because that covering looks like an ear. An auricle means ear. Then you're going to have the pumping chambers of the heart. So right here divides the two pumping chambers. The right pumping chamber of the heart, the right ventricle, is in this section here. It is much smaller than the left ventricle. You can see that there's only this little portion that's the right ventricle. The left actually covers a little bit of the anterior view of the heart, as well as all the way on the back side. So the left ventricle is much more muscular because it has to pump a lot harder. There are also some veins. Let's start with the major arteries and veins. Blood comes back to your heart from your upper body and your lower body through these structures called vena cava. This one is the superior vena cava, and it receives blood from your head region and your chest region, and the inferior vena cava receives blood from your lower body. So all that blood comes back to the right side of the heart. It is then pumped from it leaves the right atrium, enters the right ventricle, and you can see the pulmonary trunk leaves the right ventricle and it travels to the lungs. So the pulmonary trunk divides into the left and the right. The right pulmonary artery is behind. It goes, do you see how it's here? But it actually goes through that aorta, that aortic arch, and kind of goes behind the superior vena cava. So you've got your pulmonary trunk, which contains the left and the right pulmonary arteries, and they take blood to the left and right lungs in order to pick up oxygen. And then the oxygenated blood is going to come back through the left and the right pulmonary veins. And you can't really see this very well, but those veins are going to empty into the left atrium, and then the left ventricle is going to pump blood out of, although a lot of this is inside, you can't see it, out of the major artery of the heart called the aorta. So this is the ascending aorta. This would be the aortic arch, and then there are three major arteries that branch from the aorta: the brachiocephalic trunk, the left common carotid artery, and the left subclavian artery. So, and then you can also see the arteries and the veins that that supply the heart muscle itself. We call them cardiac veins and coronary arteries. So you may want to refer to this picture. This is actually slide number, if you want to come back to the slideshow, it is actually slide number 24. Okay, now let's go back and let's look at slide number 23, and hopefully I can get this done before our 15 minutes is up. Okay, so when we talk about the blood flow again, I like to talk about the blood flow coming into by the right side of the heart. So blood is entering the superior and the inferior vena cava, which are your major veins of your heart. Those the veins always carry blood back to the heart, and the arteries carry blood away. But now that we have a cross section through the heart, you can see inside of the right atrium. And inside of the right atrium, you can also tell there is a valve that separates the right atrium from the right ventricle. And when that valve is open, blood can flow from the atrium to the ventricle. But when that valve is closed, then blood cannot flow from the atrium to the ventricle. So the tricuspid valve is the name of the valve that separates the right atrium and the right ventricle. The tricuspid valve has chordae tendineae, which are just little tiny tendons that are connected to muscular structures called papillary muscles. That's actually labeled over here. They're called papillary muscles. So the chordae tendineae are what we sometimes refer to as heartstrings, and then the papillary muscles hold the chordae tendineae in place. And the tricuspid valve is the one that closes off the atria after the blood has left the atrium and entered the ventricle. It closes that atrium off so that the blood can't flow backwards back into the atrium. All right, so once the blood is in the right ventricle, this really small area of the heart, it doesn't have to go that far, so the right ventricle is not as muscular. You see this very skinny muscular layer compared to the very thick muscular layer of the left ventricle. The blood is going to be pumped out through the pulmonary trunk, where it's going to go to the left and right lungs to pick up oxygen. But it's going to pass through another type of valve. This is a semilunar valve, and it is just called the pulmonary valve, which is pretty cool. It's just the pulmonary valve because it leads from the right ventricle to the pulmonary trunk. Now, your blood that has become oxygenated is going to come back to the left side of the heart through the left and right pulmonary veins. It's going to enter your left atrium, and the left ventricle and left atrium are separated by the bicuspid valve, or we also call that the mitral valve. And in medicine, you should probably know that as the mitral valve. Okay, so once blood flows into the left ventricle, it is pumped. You can see the semilunar valves right here. They're called the aortic valves. And they're called semilunar because they're shaped like half moons. You can really see that here with the pulmonary valve, but these structures here are the aortic valve. It's the aortic valve, and it keeps blood from flowing back into the ventricle once it's been pumped into the aorta. The aorta is going to take the blood to the rest of the body, to all the body systems besides the lungs. And that's going to include the heart itself. So that's the pathway of blood through the heart. I'm going to end this section, and I'll record another section for you on some of the other material.